And we are live.
Good evening. It is Monday, December 19th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. Kearney Board of Aldermen meeting. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Surely we had a chance to take roll.
Garrett, you have to stay. We're just gonna penalize you that way. You just gotta stay.
You need me to? Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
That concludes our personal appearances this evening. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Does the board have any questions or items of discussion on the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, can we entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to ordinances. The first ordinance this evening is a motion to amend the ordinance presented in bill number 29, 2022 from the prior reading to read as a version on file in the city clerk's office as printed in the December 19th, 2022 meeting agenda packet. Any questions on the ordinance? Not going to entertain a motion. I'm sorry, if you could read the proposed ordinance for the second reading by title only, please.
Got to vote on the motion to
I think
amend
you
first.
vote on the motion to amend, and then we'll read the ordinance.
Can we entertain a motion to amend?
I make a motion to amend the ordinance.
Second.
All in favor? Oppose? Now if we can read the proposed ordinance on the second reading by title only.
An ordinance of the city of Kearney, amending the city code regarding marijuana.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pull the board, please.
Alderman Holt.
Aye.
Alderwoman Barger.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Lehman.
Aye.
Ordinance passes unanimously. Second ordinance, motion approving the second reading. We just did that. So yeah, the first was a motion, then the official passing. Sorry, we usually do both readings in one night. That threw me off a little bit. We'll move on to resolutions. A motion approving resolution 68, 2022, presented by Sheila Ernzen, our city administrator. A resolution approving the traveler's insurance renewal for 2023 property, casualty, liability, vehicle, and work comp coverage in the amount of $275,538. Ms. Administrator, do you have anything to add?
Yes, this evening, along with Otis Acres, Barney is here to report to you guys about the process that we went through to get this renewal and to answer any questions you might have.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. I'm gonna pass out these folders, just a little bit about information about us. Got one of my business cards in it so that you have someone to contact if you have any questions along the way for the insurance program. Yeah. You've already seen one. So tonight, I just wanted to be here. I know that Sheila and I worked really hard together to look back over everything and make sure all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed. Had a great tour of your city by Donnie Smith here, and he took me out to the Mr. Dell's factory, and I guess he took a picture of me because that's my wife's favorite potatoes, so that was pretty neat. But yeah, anyway, we got to see all the town, and so I feel really confident in all of our numbers. We didn't make a whole lot of changes, but we did make a few. So again, I'll be your insurance agent from here on out, and just here to answer any questions about your insurance program.
Was there a raise in premiums due to enlarging the pickleball court from a few to now 12?
Yeah, so we had to do a builder's risk on that. And so the builder's risk is a side policy. And then once it's completed, then we will add it back to this policy.
But would it go up once that takes effect?
Yes, yes.
I was wondering.
Can you explain the wind and hail deductible buyback, what that figure is?
Yeah, so what's happening in the state of Missouri is we are having an extreme amount of wind and hail losses. And so insurance companies, almost every insurance company that I have that insures public entities has gone into a situation where they offer a higher percentage deductible. Last year, you had a flat deductible of 100,000 for wind and hail, 5,000 for other lines of business. Travelers did come back this year with a 1% or a 1% with 100,000 minimum on your wind and hail deductible. So what we did, but they also came back with a renewal that was lower than what you had paid last year. So with the combination of that and the wind and hail buyback, we bought back to the flat 100,000 deductible that you had last year. So what that means is if you have a total of you've got a total of 39 million in property blanket value. If you had to pay 1% of that, if you had a total loss, that would be rather large versus a 100,000 per occurrence deductible that we bought it back to. And that's with every carrier that we're using. And so we did go to other carriers. We went to EMC, we went to MoPerm, which is the plan through the state of Missouri. We did go to NPR, which Sheila had a lot of experience with prior. They were the only ones that offered us a bid. It wasn't quite very competitive compared to what we have now. And then we of course got our option from Travelers, but NPR does, their policy year is actually July through June through, July 1st through June 31st. And they did agree that they would take a look at it again in mid-year. And so Sheila and I have kind of discussed that. We might possibly look into that. The reason is that there's a lot of market fatigue for January 1, because not only do cities, counties, school systems, my wife gets very tired of this time of year because I'm out doing this throughout the end of the year. So that could also, change that date to a different time of year, whether the board wanted to do that or not. But that's the one thing about us, is we're going to keep looking. We'll make sure that we're checking the market and making sure you've got all the right coverages. And as you can see in there, we do more than just bring rates every year. My biggest thing was just to get to know Sheila, see where your program was. And then after the first of the year, I'd really like to start implementing some other programs that are needed possibly throughout the city, safety programs and any other kind of risk management. That's just part of what we do. That's not an additional charge.
Did our cyber insurance amount, did it stay the same from last year?
Yeah, it was, it went up a little bit. It was 3,700 last year. It went up to 5,300. But I'm just going to tell you,
I think that's normal, right?
I've seen about 100%. I've seen some 100%.
I'm talking about the face value of our.
Oh, the face value. Yes. No, we didn't change the coverage. I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you meant the premium. Yeah, no, we kept the coverage the same that it was.
Are there any other questions from the board?
It would seem that we are mitigating our risks, so.
Well, that's what I'm here to do. Jerry's seen me speak at other places, and at the MML, we're very involved in the MML and the Missouri Association of Counties as well. Our agency is. So again, this is a heavy focus for us. So we will try and also always be on the cutting edge for you. If there's something new, I'll try and get the information to Sheila. So.
Great.
Thank you. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas. We entertain, is this a resolution? Do you want to read the proposed resolution?
A resolution approving the traveler's insurance renewal for 2023 property, casualty, liability, vehicle, and work comp coverage in the amount of $275,538. And this is within the $334,000 budget for insurance. That part of that would include deductibles, which we haven't had any yet this year, but.
Motion to approve the resolution is read.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries unanimously. I'll move on to mayor's communications. First item I want to update on is a budget update. Spent 2 days last week in City Hall with our interim city administrator and department heads. They were able to present to us their budget request for our coming fiscal year. And I'm really excited to continue that work. Sheila and the department heads have done a phenomenal job this year, starting early and making sure that they're putting forth a budget that when it hits the board here for approval, one that I'm confident will serve our city extremely well. So thank you to Sheila and all the department heads that I spent a lot of time with working so hard on that budget request. Next thing I want to mention is the loggers benefits, the actual evaluation comparing the cost of the L7 plan to the cost of the L6 plan. A step in our loggers retirement is something that I feel is something that we need to keep on our radar and look at, making sure that as we continue to do our best to be an employer choice, provide a better retirement to our employees when we're looking at not only attracting but retaining good people. A lot of what I consider our peer and competitive cities have made steps. A municipality to the south of us is even, they have a no, matching is not the correct word, but they are paying for the retirement and contributions, even without the employee now having to make a contribution themselves. So I don't know, that's Liberty. I don't know if that's just for the fire department or if that's citywide, but
It's citywide.
Citywide.
Yeah.
So the cost, every year we are allowed to get a evaluation from loggers, and Sheila graciously had that done for us. That's been included in the packet. It looks like on an annual basis, if we would make the step, it would be over $300,000 a year of additional cost to do that. So something as we're working on our budget request, and something that I hope we can implement here in the near future. So last thing I want to mention under mayor's communications is obviously it is Christmas Sunday. So I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. It's been another really good year, full of a lot of blessings in our community. So hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and you get to spend some time with your family and loved ones. That concludes my mayor's communications this evening. We'll move on to the long city administrator's report.
The first item tonight is, so Greg Kendall is here tonight from Lamprey Nearson. He actually completed a water system study and has done a brief PowerPoint presentation to kind of go over the results of that with you.
Good evening. As was mentioned, we'll review some of what we reviewed in the water study and some of our recommendations. David, if you want to roll it forward one there. We looked at several items, but the primary goals of the study, what we were looking at was how to resolve the taste and odor issues that you have, and making sure that you have necessary elevated storage to meet your future demands and your current demands. First item, the taste and odor issues. You have two different sources of water. You have your water treatment plant, and the primary disinfectant at the water treatment plant is free chlorine, and you have another type of chlorine and the water that you receive from Kansas City. You have chloramines there, and sometimes when those two waters mix, you have taste and odor problem. So the solution to that was to change the type of disinfection used at one of those sources. And what we're recommending is changing the disinfectant at the water treatment plant to chloramines. That'll require the installation of some chemical feed pumps that will fit inside the existing chemical feed room at the water plant. The estimated cost for that improvement is $125,000, or that's estimated to be a 0.6% rate increase, which is about 5 cents per 1,000 gallons. And based on an average monthly bill of 5,000 gallons, it's 25 cents per month increase for that improvement. And then moving on to the storage improvements, we looked at several different options. The two that we will present here that we'll recommend, one or the other of those is replacing the 250,000 gallon tank you have on the south or east side of town with either a 750,000 or a 1 million gallon tank. And what we're showing here is based on the estimated 4% growth over the next 20 years. The top two rows are looking at your low pressure zone, which is served by the south tank. So on the left there, you have what the recommended size would be for that tank based on your current demands. And then the 0.3 million gallons, these are all in million gallons, is what you actually have right now. So you can see that right now you're short in the low pressure zone. If you increase that, you build a new 750,000 gallon tank, that will give you 0.8 million gallons on the low pressure side, and that serves you pretty well. But you can see about 2037, 2042, you're still, you get back to where you're a little low in the low pressure zone again. The high pressure zone on the lower two columns, you're fine there. You have a 1.5 million gallon storage tank on the north or west side, and that's sufficient for the demands that we're estimating at that site. Go ahead and do it. If you were to replace the 250,000 gallon tank with a 1 million gallon tank on the south side, that will get you farther into the future. In 2042, you're just slightly below what would be recommended for that low pressure zone, but your total system storage is above what would be recommended. So you're a little balance there. If you make the tank too big, you can have some problems with water quality. So a 1 million gallon tank, we feel would be a good size there. And the recommendation would be to go ahead and install the 1 million gallon tank. The prices on the tanks are always going up. Right now they vary a little bit with the size of the tank, but roughly $325 to $350 a gallon is a good estimating cost for a tank, and it wasn't that long ago. Price per gallon was $2.50 to $3 a gallon. It's just steadily increasing. Go ahead there. And here's just a little summary of what you have again that we've been talking about. You have the 1.5 million gallon tank on the north side that serves the high pressure zone, 250,000 gallon tank on the south side that serves the low pressure zone, and there's the 500,000 gallon standpipe just west of the water plant that serves by Jim or Veriform. Historically, that's been just for fire supply, but with some recent piping improvements, now you're getting a little use out of that tank to get some turnover in there, and you're feeding the water plant and Ply Jim's meter from that standpipe. So Again, just for the needs, if you wanted to just solve your current needs, a 750,000 gallon tank, but to go farther into the future and give yourself some additional storage, would recommend a 1 million gallon tank on the south side to replace the 250,000 gallon. Go ahead and roll it forward. So cost estimates, if you were to do a 750,000 gallon tank, we'd estimate that cost at $3.95 million, which would require about a 12.25% rate increase, or $1.10 per thousand, $5.50 per average monthly bill. If you went ahead and constructed the 1 million gallon tank, we'd estimate that cost at $4.9 million, which would be about a 16.9% rate increase, or $7.50 average monthly bill. Go ahead, David. So next steps would be for the board to select one of those storage options, the 750,000 gallon or the 1 million, and then secure some financing and adjust your user rates. And once you get to that point, provide notice to proceed to go ahead with design and construction of both the disinfection improvements and the storage improvements. And that's the end of it there. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
So I think all of our conversations, right, wrong, or indifferent up until this point have been the 750, but it's my thoughts. I mean, I concur, Mr. Kendall. I mean, the cost of construction, labor, and materials, I mean, it's not going to get any less expensive as we move forward. So I think it would totally make sense for $2 more a month right now per user to look at going to the 1 million gallons, not only for future need, if there's, you know, fire support. I mean, I think there's many reasons on why. I think it's always better to be a little proactive than reactive, especially on water. So
yes, and what goes into that size recommendation, it's based on your average flow. There is fire flow storage included in that, and additional consideration with that low pressure zone tank is that in the future, when your demands increase, much of the water that ends up in the high pressure zone is going to pass through that tank.
does the board have any thoughts or questions from Mr. Kendall?
I totally agree that this would be better to go bigger
In the long
now.
term, yeah.
It will save us so much money at the other end, because costs are rising exponentially. So this is in our favor to do this now.
Are we still talking about the underground tank too that we talked about?
No. Then this would be, I think originally we were talking about
Improving the ground storage.
yeah,
tank.
improving the ground storage at our current facility, but that's, I think, not found to be our
Right,
best.
when we first started out with the study, that was our thinking, was that would be the place to make improvements. But as we updated the hydraulic model and looked at your growth, doing that would not solve your lack of elevated storage.
And the good news is, be reminded that we, obviously, the steps, we need to figure out size. Sheila and I have had some conversations on financing options, but we do have ARPA funding reserved that we can deploy here as well. So I don't believe that these numbers took into consideration any of those ARPA funds. So actual cost will per user will hopefully be lower than what we project here.
Rather than tearing down the other tank and replacing it, would it be better just to build a new tank to supplement what we have?
We considered that, and we considered other sites. That site's really the best site you have for a tank, and it would be possible to keep that tank and build another one next to it, but then you have two tanks that you're maintaining. Yeah. And I think the total cost to maintain those two tanks would be more than the cost to maintain a single million-gallon tank.
So we're talking about putting a new tank where the existing tower
Right,
is.
right next to it, yes.
We own
And then
the
take that
plan.
one down.
No, we'll probably have to get some stuff from Shanks to do that. So I don't think we have room to do both at the same, enough room to build one till we get the other one torn down.
It's tight. When we get into design, we'll verify that. I think we can fit a new tank on there. We were looking more, initially at 750,000 gallon, but if necessary, we'll see about acquiring some additional space, but we'll work on trying to fit it in the space you have.
Drastically.
Especially with the history we have with that property owner.
Does the board feel comfortable to make a general consensus to encourage staff and our vendors to move forward with the million?
Could I ask a
Yeah,
couple
absolutely.
questions first? What's the life cycle of these tanks? So the one that's north out here, how long before we have to
I would
look at?
say in excess of 50 years.
Okay,
Your
Do you know how-
paint, you're typically repainting them every 15 to 20 years.
and how old is that one out there, do you know?
Was that early 90s? I want to say sometime in the 90s. that one.
Mid-90s.
Early mid-90s, yeah.
It was right, I started in 93, and it was not very long after that when we started meetings about it.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to say it was in the 90s.
Okay, so it's theoretically, we might need to replace this one in 25 years.
I'm sorry, say again?
Theoretically, we might need to replace this one in 25 years. This is
One
the
of
old.
Oh, well, it's a good shot. I mean, if you maintain it, it would probably last longer than that.
Okay, that was my concern, is like, if we're gonna spend all of this money and then we have to turn around and replace another one, this seems like a really good time. If we're gonna build a million gallon tank, it seems like a good time to do it from a financial, spreading out the cost, kind of my concern.
Our newer water tower was early 2000s, I believe.
Yeah.
So
2000.
it's got a little longer lifespan. So I guess, unless you guys want to make an official motion to select a storage option tonight, maybe just at this point, a general consensus for the million gallon tanks to give staff and our consultant and vendor here the green light to kind of move forward with some additional planning.
I think
I vote.
we'd be negligent of our duties if we go to the 750, because in 5 years, we're gonna be right back.
Yeah.
We're gonna be just even, and so, I think we're wise to go with the million and push it clear out to 2037, I think it was, something like that. So yeah, I'd be in favor of the million.
I also would be in favor of the large tank.
That gives the direction I think you need to move on with your next steps. Is there anything else you need from us on this?
I do want to just kind of talk a little bit about some different financing avenues. So I think that the thought process originally was maybe doing a lease purchase agreement. And there are some opportunities, if we did revenue bonds, that we might be able to get a better rate. In order to do revenue bonds, voters have to approve the issuance. And that would mean that we would need to, next month, you would need to approve ballot language for that. One of the
Why
possible,
would we have to do it that early?
Because the deadline is January 24th to get
For the April ballot.
for the April
The
ballot.
But what's the emergency to get it on the April ballot?
Oh, well, you would want to know whether or not that was going to be approved, so you could go ahead and get the funding to do the project.
Okay, here's my concern. I understand that we want to do this. We're not 100% sure that we have all the funds we need for the interchange and that project. We still may be short and have to come back to voters because the cost overruns on that. So are we going to be going 2 and 3 times to the voters asking for money?
Well, I've not received, unless you've received something that I haven't, I've not received anything.
Well, we knew what
That's-
our budget was, and we knew that we had to pay more for land acquisition, so I know we're short.
That line item you're at, that's accurate, that's fair to say. That line item itself is gonna be over our proposed budget, but overall, we have not received any indication that the project in whole is not gonna be under budget now. You don't know until it's done, and there's, let alone a $25 million project, there's gonna be some cost overruns, and some items are gonna be lower than the intended budget, some are gonna be higher. But I think it's apparent, specifically by this study too, that this is a priority as well, and I think has been for a couple of years. If we go the revenue bond route, we've never done that here. I've never been involved in that, but my understanding on the revenue bond route is that money is put aside, invested by the state treasurer's office, and there's a list and a process to get approved for that. We typically, I think Sheila, you said it's usually about a 2%, 200 basis point savings in rate. That could slow the project down because we'd have to be awarded that funding. I know we've always had a good result with lease purchase. We've always had local banks and other partners give us subprime rates. So I'm trying to answer a couple questions. One, if the revenue bond route is the way that as a board we decide to go, the importance of getting that on the April ballot is because we know there's going to be a waiting period for that approved funding. Other option, and that the revenue bonds require voter approval. Lease purchases obviously do not require voter approval. So my conversation with Sheila earlier today is I'd like to see some sort of comparison analysis of kind of waiting and seeing, if we could look at executing a contract to, like I said, materials and supplies are only going to increase, labor is going to increase, kind of the net analysis of that we may be able to save 2% if we go revenue bond route and voters approve it compared to starting it sooner than that. So is that fair to say on why it's important to get it on the April ballot is because, if revenue bond route is the way we go, we got to start the process and get on the approved project list for funding.
And there are 2 different revenue bond options. So lease purchase is always going to be more expensive. You are going to, your collateral is the project. Revenue bonds are going to be typically a better rate because the guarantee for it is through rates, right? And so bondholders, investors want to do that. There are 2, so I think that you would get a better rate and the citizens would get a better rate if they had the option to do revenue bonds. Additionally, there are, the mayor said, SRF funding, SRF loan program, or there's just traditional revenue bonds. SRF funding is kind of almost like a federal grant program, state revolving funds. It is a longer process though, and there is more compliance. So there might be we'd need to do an analysis to see if it would be worth the additional savings to go the SRF route. But even if voters just approve the revenue bonds, I do believe that they would get additional savings, just going traditional revenue bonds as well. So,
And I know you know this, but I just want to make sure the general public is aware too. Two different projects too. We couldn't use water money for transportation project and vice versa. So that funding and stuff is restricted. Now ARPA funding we can deploy where we need to, obviously. But just want to make sure that everybody is aware that water projects or transportation projects come from two different types of funding mechanisms.
and Mayor, there's about $500,000 in this year's budget of ARPA funds that is slated for this project.
How soon, Greg, can you get numbers?
I'm sorry.
How soon can you get numbers on this project?
As far as a full, well, when we get into design, we'll tighten numbers up.
Would you have them in time to get on the ballot?
We will.
Because you'd have to ask for a set dollar amount, would you not?
Yes,
Well,
and
yeah, I think we'll
that
probably use,
we would be using
on
estimates,
the
and
numbers we
we would be using Todd Goffey to do that analysis. He's already working on it for me, or he already knows that it might be coming anyway.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think this is, we're back to a time thing, and if the first step is to get our citizens to be on board with this, which is, I think, an important step, we probably should get this language figured out and on the April ballot, so that then we have all those other steps once they say yes to get these revenue bonds. So even if we do this now, it still could be well over half a year or more before we're even to a point where we can move forward. So time is pretty critical.
What happens if the revenue bonds don't pass?
You would still have the option to do the lease purchase. I can't imagine that citizens wouldn't choose the most cost-effective method, and it would save them money to approve the revenue bonds. If we are able to educate and get that message out, I believe that citizens would want to spend less money.
My concern would be though, the optics of it, if they turn it down and then we turn around and say, well, we're gonna do it anyway, and we're just gonna fund it a different method.
think it's very fair, and I think we have a responsibility as a board, and we can point back to this document itself. I mean, we have to be in compliant and have to make sure we have adequate water storage and safe drinking water for our community. Once again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we could, no offense, Eric, build beautiful pickleball courts and do all kinds of wonderful things in the community, but at the end of the day, you know, our job and number one priority is to provide the best basic services that the community deserves and demands. And so,
Well, now you're talking about health and safety, so
Right.
yeah, we don't have a whole lot of options.
I think it all falls back on education. It took us a while to educate for the use tax and a couple of other things through the years. So this is all in how well we put it out there.
good questions and conversation. Anything else on this item?
I don't know how.
Okay.
Merry Christmas and good night.
Merry Christmas, thanks for being here.
The next item under City Administrator's report is just to remind you all that because of the New Year's holiday, our next board meeting will be January 3rd at 6:30 p.m., which is a Tuesday. Also, it just happens that the second meeting in January will also be on a Tuesday night because of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. The next item I wanted to propose to you all, we were putting out the calendar, marking up the calendar for calendar year 2023 and writing all the meetings and holidays on a single calendar. And we realized that Monday night the first meeting in July will be Monday night, July 3rd. That is the night of the community fireworks event. And typically staff is very busy getting ready for that event. And so and then of course the following day is the 4th of July holiday. So I was going to inquire if we know in advance, if staff knows, we will, and we already have our agenda calendar done for the year, we can make sure that there's no problem with canceling a meeting. So I think in the past, maybe that hasn't happened because we were approving bills at each meeting, and that's not necessary now. So I wanted to propose possibly canceling the July 3rd meeting. And then on December 18th of next year, there actually is not a holiday that night, but the Christmas holiday is on the second court night for December. And the judge has requested to have court on that night, December 18th. They are worried about our dockets get quite large and our court nights already last several hours. And so not having a second meeting in December, and also worried about all the continuances and people not showing up if it's between the week of December 25th and January 1st. And so December 19th is a park board meeting scheduled for that. And so I was just wondering if you would consider possibly canceling the December 18th board meeting.
So what, go ahead, sorry.
We've rented this before, and when it was like that, we would end up having the city council meeting downstairs and let the court have upstairs and not cancel.
Yeah, I don't like canceling meetings.
Yeah, we can't have a meeting downstairs because we don't have an ADA accessible entrance to that facility.
We've done it before, but I mean,
My concern, I'm not as concerned about the January or the July 3rd meeting as I am December 18th, because if there's something on planning and zoning, we can't vote on it then for another 3 weeks, and that could just delay somebody's project. So, I mean, if we tentatively wanted to say there's nothing for us to look at, then we can skip the meeting, but if we need to meet, we need to find another day. Because I think that's not fair to people who follow all the rules. We want to make sure that we get their things approved.
Yeah, it does make it, if we cancel one, it makes it a month between meetings. And
if we posted, we might be able to have a meeting at the firehouse.
I'll change our location. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, that's an option.
I think you have the feedback there you're looking for. So I think that is the board would like to have a July and December meeting, just look at possible locations and dates.
I mean, even if.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not too concerned about the July 3rd, but I'm with Kathy on July 18th.
Yeah, July 3rd fireworks doesn't even start until dark, 9 o'clock. Sometimes later.
Yeah, but if you get out to the park, you want to get out there.
And plus, a lot of the people who attend this meeting are going to need to be out there way ahead of time.
So we'll get
Yeah,
moving
I
up till
don't
July
think
5th.
any of our staff will be here. Yeah.
Be here on July 3rd.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always July 5th, which is a Wednesday, but.
I'm usually in the park by 5:30.
So,
Yeah, we could move it to July 5th. That would be that Wednesday, the same with the 18th. It could be that Wednesday,
Yeah,
because if we,
mhm.
but I will also say, having served on Parks and Rec for a couple years, sometimes guys don't always meet because there aren't things on your agenda.
Sometimes it's in December, but sometimes we've met because of projects that come up
Yeah,
in December. But and most of the time, it's if we just don't have a quorum from some members that can't be there. But now that we have 9, we mainly meet almost every month. since the increase, I should say, since near increase, but, so.
Okay, so the feedback is that you guys want just to move those 2 meetings to Wednesday of those weeks. Okay. Perfect. Oh, it's me, I guess.
You.
Sorry. The next item is, I just want you to know that the police department is purchasing a 2022 Dodge Charger from Landmark Dodge. It's within budget, $29,450, and it will be granite gray. Additionally, Public Water Supply District number 6, they bid out the relocation of the water line for the interchange and roundabout project. Decker Construction won that bid, and it is in the amount of $226,146. And then Donnie is going to,
So our salt building is in full swing. David found that we had room to mix salt and sand together, so he's got salt and sand
Oh,
mixed,
very
ready to go. Typically, we could only have about 140 tons on hand, anywhere to put it. And right now, we have 500 tons on hand.
The bad part.
And you can see the building's not even close to capacity, which is great. And historically, we use roughly 300 tons of material per event. I did a historical average from 2016. Don't hold me to that, because we know we can have 8 or 10 of them, but we should be able to cover the entire year with the surplus this year with what we have on hand right now.
That's great. Our friends to the west they're using some sort of liquid product. Did you know that? I've noticed from their agendas and stuff that I don't know what it is, but is that something maybe you think would work well in the future we could look into as well?
We actually have what they call magnesium chloride that comes in a liquid form that you add to salt, and it drops the temperature to like -30 roughly. And salt's usually done at 26, 28, unless there's sun. It stops working, it's not as effective. And we have some of that coming tomorrow, just in case. But there are lots of options. Lots of people use beet juice, they use geomelt. I mean, there's myriad of things and I am investigating which is the best.
Well, I appreciate you pushing and stressing this need for many years, and glad to see it's here and being put to use.
Me too. I was always afraid of multiple waves of events, and then we couldn't get salt here, and then we're just in trouble.
Yeah.
So this is fabulous.
and then the next item, I just noticed that Eric wasn't wearing his pickle costume.
No.
But he has a report.
Just an update on the pickleball and skate park complex. We're thrilled that before we had that last rainstorm, they were able to get the asphalt base in. It's still on schedule. Actually, they're a little ahead of schedule for a May of 23 opening. In fact, an email from the construction company, they are going to start moving the actual skate park apparatus, and we're getting the update on where we want to put that to relocate that in for a layout on the skate park, and then they'll be putting that together. It's going to be a fabulous park for kids and adults alike. So we're plumbing and things of that nature are going to be going on to get the bathroom ready. So that's basically it. I showed 4 pictures just basically of the sites. So that's the actual pickleball layout right there. So.
Is that base asphalt there, the parking area?
Pardon me?
base asphalt on the parking area?
Yes, that's the base asphalt, the parking area, and that's in between areas, and that's the skate park itself right there. And that area will not have the actual finish on it, it will just be the broom finished concrete. So,
I am a little disappointed that you and Dan didn't wear your pickleball, pickle outfits from the parade. But,
I got it in the truck.
you know, as I mentioned last meeting, I guess if departments want to win some hardware in the parade, they got to have the board right away, right?
that's
So,
how it is, and I appreciate the extra 3 days of vacation for winning. No.
That's good.
what
Tried to slide
trophy
that
did the
in,
Parks
didn't you?
Department win? What
Most unique.
most unique? So it was a great time, and so,
I think
Well,
part
it
of that
isn't
had,
often you see pickles in a Christmas parade.
yeah.
well, I think that part of that had to do with, we had one pickle that was on the sugar high. And he kind of made it very unique.
Yeah.
And now he's sick.
I noticed it.
I wonder why his voice isn't working
Right.
very well. Does
It's not a bad thing.
that conclude your report?
Yes, Mayor.
We'll move on to Alderman discussion. Bless you. Alderman Spencer?
I just want to wish everyone in our community health, prosperity, and happiness in this holiday season and throughout the coming year.
Alderman Holt?
I kind of want to piggyback on that. We take it for granted that we live in a very affluent community, but that's on the surface. You don't have to go very far to find families in need and see generational people that are there. So this Christmas season, keep an eye out where somebody who's less fortunate than yourself, who you may not see it at first, but you really got to look at it. Be willing to be charitable to them this holiday season. With inflation and everything, a lot of these people are living paycheck to paycheck, and then inflation's getting it even harder. So this holiday season, as joyful as it can be very stressful for some people as well. And I think it's good for us to be able to take care of our own neighbors and look out after them.
Alderman Lehman?
Just wanted to briefly touch on the parade. This year I wasn't able to be on the float, so I took a seat and watched it from a stationary standpoint, and had the privilege of sitting close to and talking to some people that came up here from Kansas City. And we keep talking about this parade in Kearney and Kearney people, and as the parade was going by, I was talking to this family from Kansas City, and they were just absolutely amazed that little town Kearney could put on a parade like we had. And they were just in awe about all the entries and what was really kind of funny is they knew about the parade, but they didn't know about fireworks. And so I made sure to let them know, stick around somewhere where you can see to the south around 8 o'clock. We also do a fireworks display. And so it's just really neat to see a town of our size be able to do a parade like that for the third year now. And my wife and I wish Mr. Scholl was still here, but my wife and I went out south of town so we'd get a better viewpoint of the fireworks. And guys, that's one of the best fireworks displays that I've seen in a long time. And for a citizen to do that, it's just absolutely amazing. It's really neat to see from a different standpoint this year. So just wanted to make sure everybody was was safe on Thursday. We've got a major winter storm that's supposedly gonna come in, so be safe. From what I'm hearing, don't travel unless you have to, because it's gonna be pretty treacherous. But lastly, I wanted to wish my fellow board members and mayor and all the city staff and all the citizens a Merry Christmas. It's been a good year and look forward to 2023.
Alderman Barker?
Well, I'm gonna add a little bit to the Magic Night. I know what it's like to work behind the scenes of an event, and sometimes people enjoy it, but nobody ever says thanks. And so I want to just take an opportunity to thank all the people who worked in the background to make the parade and the magical night and everything that went on that night, fireworks included, a success. I'm not going to name names because I will miss somebody and then I'll be in trouble. But I just want to thank everybody, because that doesn't happen in a week. It doesn't happen in a month. It's a lot of work. And I know it was very much appreciated by the people who got to enjoy all of the events. And then I will just add my wishes that we all find peace and joy in this season and everyone has a safe and happy holiday.
That's another year that went by way too fast, for
Yeah,
sure.
it did.
So, with that, can we consider a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.